So if you were to picture the greatest king the Seven Kingdoms ever knew, you'd probably imagine a god draped in velvet.
Oh, absolutely. Heavy velvet, a massive crown.
Exactly. Sleeping on silk sheets, wielding this impossibly sharp Valyrian steel sword.
Yeah, that's what the maesters want you to believe. They really push this idea that power is pristine.
Right. But the actual hidden history of Westeros is so much darker than that. Because destiny, it turns out, has a really wicked sense of humor.
It really does. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a history soaked in mud and rust.
Yeah. So today on the Deep Dive, we are pulling back the curtain on a deeply suppressed sequence of events from the year 209 AC.
Because the ruling elite of Westeros have spent, well, decades trying to sanitize this specific era.
Because the truth kind of shatters the whole illusion of royal supremacy. We're looking at an incident where a pasty-faced, unnervingly bald 9-year-old child,
Who is just covered head to toe in river muck, by the way.
yeah, literally covered in mud, actively choosing to live as human refuse. But tucked away inside his filthy boot is a golden signet ring bearing the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen,
Prince Aegon Targaryen.
Prince Aegon. So we are tearing into the brutal political realities and, honestly, the psychological horror that drove a royal prince to willingly vanish into the dirt.
Because you have to look at the powder kick he was walking into. It's 209 AC.
Right.
The realm is technically at peace, but it's this paranoid, suffocating kind of peace.
Because the Blackfire Rebellion only ended, what, 13 years prior?
Exactly. The wounds are still bleeding. Half the lords in the realm secretly supported the rebel dragon.
Just waiting for any moment of weakness from the Iron Throne.
And against this backdrop of simmering treason, you have this grand tourney at the Ashford Meadow in the Reach.
Oh, and it is a blinding, almost grotesque display of wealth.
Totally. The greatest lords of Westeros are erecting these massive silk pavilions, flying banners of lions, stags, apples.
It's basically the high nobility desperately pretending everything is completely fine.
Yeah, but our story completely ignores the silk pavilions. We are miles away at this cheap daub and timber roadside inn beside a stream.
And this is where we witness the collision of two completely incompatible worlds. Because you have Ser Duncan the Tall Dunk.
Good old Dunk.
Dunk represents the absolute bottom of the chivalric food chain. I mean, he's pushing 7 feet tall, wearing rusted chainmail.
Tying his scabbard to his waist with a piece of cheap hempen rope.
Right, just a rope. And he's riding this swayback stot named Thunder. And then you have this brazen, foul-mouthed little stable boy calling himself Egg.
Who just marches right up and demands to be Dunk Squire.
And Dunk looks at this kid, sees the shaved head, and naturally assumes he's just trying to keep the lice away.
Which is such a brilliant life-saving illusion at the center of all this.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why does a prince, fourth in line to the throne, dress in rags and shave his head?
Because that razor wasn't for parasites. In Westeros, the blood of old Valyria is literally a death sentence if you are trying to hide.
Right, because of the hair.
Exactly. That ethereal, shimmering, silver gold hair, those striking deep purple eyes, they aren't just rare traits. They are the physical manifestation of a royal monopoly on power.
It's like the heir to a massive global empire, completely dropping off the grid to wash dishes at a roadside diner. Except in Westeros, if anyone recognizes your face, you don't get a tabloid article, you get assassinated.
Exactly. If you're a Targaryen trying to vanish into the muck of the Riverlands, that hair is a beacon for every cutthroat in the realm.
I mean, I struggle to understand the extreme paranoia here, though.
Huh.
Egg is fourth in line to his father's seat.
Right.
He's not the immediate heir to the Iron Throne. Why the absolute necessity to shear his head like a convict?
Well, you're applying modern succession logic to a feudal society that just survived a massive civil war.
Well, fair point.
In Westeros, a royal spare is a weapon. You don't need to be the heir to be dangerous, you just need the blood.
So anyone could use him.
Right. If a disgruntled lord, say, a former Blackfire supporter, finds a silver-haired Targaryen wandering the woods without a Kingsguard, they don't just ask for a ransom.
They kidnap him.
They kidnap him, marry him to their daughter, and suddenly they have a legitimate claim to start a brand new rebellion. Egg isn't just a boy. He is a massive, walking political liability.
Wow. So it's literally like walking around a lawless war zone with a nuclear launch code taped to your forehead.
That's exactly what it is.
The moment anyone recognizes you, your life is forfeit. You become a pawn, a hostage, or a corpse.
What's fascinating here is that Egg wasn't kidnapped or lost. He actively, desperately sought out the biggest, most clueless knight he could find.
This wasn't an accident. It was an escape.
Completely.
But that leads us into the darkest part of this history. If he willingly ran away, what terrifying reality was he fleeing?
He was fleeing a profoundly toxic, psychologically shattering family dynamic.
Because you don't trade Kingsguard protection for sleeping on a tavern floor, unless the real danger is inside the castle walls.
Right. To understand the mud, we really have to unmask the monsters hiding inside the Red Keep. And we have to start with the patriarch.
Prince Maekar.
Historically known as the Anvil.
Yeah, and Maekar treated his sons the way a bad blacksmith treats cheap iron.
He just kept striking them over and over.
Exactly, hoping they'd magically turn into Valyrian steel. But instead, the metal just shattered.
Because Maekar's entire personality was defined by his resentment of his older brother, Baelor Breakspear.
Oh, Baelor was the golden child, the perfect knight, the heir everyone loved.
And Maekar was the bitter, unappreciated commander living entirely in his shadow. And like many deeply insecure men in positions of supreme authority, he projected all of his inadequacy onto his children.
He placed these crushing, suffocating expectations on his sons to somehow outshine Baelor's line.
He demanded absolute martial perfection. But, military discipline doesn't work on psychological fragility.
It really doesn't.
The boys just cracked under the weight of the anvil.
And the first one to crack was the eldest, Prince Daeron, also known as Daeron the Drunken.
Right, who was actually supposed to ride in the Ashford Tourney to win glory for his father.
And Egg was assigned to be a squire, right?
Yeah, they left the castle together under the royal banner. But Daeron completely abandoned his post.
He didn't even ride to the tourney. He just hid in a tavern and drank until he passed out.
And the real tragedy is he wasn't just lazy. He was being driven insane by something embedded in his own DNA.
The dragon dreams.
Yeah. We have to understand the mechanism of prophecy in this world. It's not just a bad nightmare.
It's temporal psychic bleed.
Exactly. The Targaryen bloodline is occasionally cursed with these vivid, uncontrollable glimpses of the future. Historically, these visions saved them from the doom of Valyria, but they take an immense psychological toll.
Oh, I can't even imagine your brain being violently hijacked by terrifying, often violent imagery of events that haven't happened yet.
But absolutely will happen. It just erodes the sanity of the dreamer.
So Daeron couldn't handle the visions, and he just drowned his own consciousness in wine. It's pathetic, but it's deeply tragic when you think about it.
And the sources reveal that Daeron was the one who actually shaved Egg's head.
Wait, really? It was Daeron?
Yes. The eldest brother abandons his royal duties, shears his little 9-year-old brother like a sheep, and tells him to get lost so he can quietly drink himself to death and make the visions stop.
Wow. He just leaves him.
Oh.
But as bad as Daeron was, he wasn't malicious.
No, Daeron was a danger to his own liver, not his brother.
Right. The real reason Egg refused to return to the Red Keep, the true horror of his daily existence, was the second brother.
Prince Aegon.
Aegon Brightflame. When you read the Maester's accounts of Aegon, the tone drops into pure psychological horror.
Because this wasn't just a demanding older brother, this was a clinical psychopath.
Who genuinely believed he was a literal, physical dragon trapped in a human body.
Yeah. He paraded around the Red Keep in this terrifying, extravagant armor, plated entirely in golden dragon scales and spikes.
And he looked at other human beings the way we look at cattle.
It's the doctrine of Targaryen exceptionalism, just completely weaponized by a diseased mind.
For centuries, the Targaryens preached that they were closer to gods than men, immune to the laws of normal society.
Right. And if you feed that doctrine to a child who already possesses a dark, sadistic tilt, you don't get a king. You get a monster who views cruelty as his divine right.
Wait, so the royal family just allowed this psychotic prince to roam the halls? Doesn't that completely contradict Maekar's demand for discipline?
It exposes the ultimate blind spot of the dynasty. The Targaryens historically mistake madness for greatness.
Oh, wow.
Maekar likely viewed Aeryn's viciousness as the dragon waking, a sign of martial strength that his eldest son, Daeron, completely lacked.
So cruelty was just indulged as fiery Targaryen spirit.
Exactly. But for a 9-year-old Egg, that blind spot meant he was living with an apex predator.
Yeah, because the sources detail how Aeryn once took Egg's beloved pet cat.
And threw it down a bottomless well.
Just cost it. And he didn't even do it out of anger, right?
No, he did it clinically, just to listen to the pitch of the animal's scream as it fell into the dark.
It's the textbook definition of a serial killer escalating his behavior. And the escalation targeted Egg directly.
Oh, it gets so much worse.
There's an account of Aeryn creeping into Egg's bedroom in the dead of night. He pins this 9-year-old kid down, holds a dagger to his throat, and casually threatens to castrate him to make him a sister wife.
Just let the sheer terror of that reality settle for a second.
It's unthinkable. You are in the safest, most heavily guarded fortress on the continent. You have knights in white cloaks stationed right in the halls.
But none of that matters because the person holding the knife is royal blood, and the guards serve the blood.
The institution itself was complicit in his torture. The King's Guard are sworn to protect the royal family, but they can't protect the royal family from itself.
So Egg realized at 9 years old that the entire apparatus of the state was toxic.
So what does this all mean? When Daeron passed out in a puddle of ale on the way to Ashford, Egg saw his window.
He didn't run to the local garrison. He didn't send a raven to his father.
He rejected the crown entirely. He shed the entitlement, the madness, and the cruelty of his bloodline right along with his hair.
And his rejection was utterly calculated. He didn't just wander into the woods to become a feral child.
He scouted the Ashford Tourney. He looked past all the shiny armor and the famous lords.
And he deliberately attached himself to Sir Duncan the Tall.
This massive, uneducated brute with rusted gear, who technically wasn't even an anointed knight.
Why Dunk? Because Dunk had the one thing the Red Keep had entirely eradicated: actual, uncorrupted honor.
Yes, Dunk protected the weak. When Dunk sat down to eat his meager rations, he took his hard, stale bread and split it perfectly evenly with a muddy, nameless stableboy.
Look at the socio-economic brilliance of this child's decision. Egg had been surrounded by high lords who sang songs of chivalry while letting psychopaths literally roam their halls.
Dunk didn't know the songs, but he actually lived the chivalry.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Egg wasn't just hiding. He was interviewing his future Kingsguard commander.
Oh, that is so good. By stepping into the mud of the Riverlands and sleeping in the gutters of Flea Bottom, Prince Aegon was learning the actual price of bread.
He was forging himself into Aegon the Unlikely, the greatest champion the smallfolk ever had on the Iron Throne.
He understood that a king who only knows the castle can only rule the castle. You have to understand the dirt to rule the realm.
It's an incredibly sophisticated move for a kid who hasn't even hit puberty.
But this is where the epic, forbidden history of Westeros brutally asserts itself.
Because true kings might be forged in the mud, but the mud of Westeros is soaked in blood.
You can't hide the blood of the dragon forever.
Right.
Egg's perfect escape from that incestuous bubble of Targaryen supremacy is about to brutally collide with fate.
The collision is inevitable. The royal family is not going to just let a prince vanish.
The Kingsguard, the father, the entire state apparatus, it's all going to mobilize.
And the moment that mobilization begins, Daeron the Drunken wakes up from his stupor.
And he realizes he is staring down the absolute wrath of the anvil. He lost the prince.
So, to save his own skin, Daeron spins a desperate, vicious lie.
He claims he didn't abandon his post. He tells his father that a massive, lowly hedge knight ambushed them and basically kidnapped the royal prince.
He completely frames Dunk for a capital offense.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Why was Daeron so terrified in the first place?
We have to go back to the dragon dreams.
Daeron didn't just run to the tavern because he was lazy. He ran because his prophetic nightmare showed him a specific, horrifying vision.
The spicy, world-shattering twist of this entire situation? Daeron saw a colossal dead dragon falling directly from the sky, landing right on top of Sir Duncan the Tall.
Wait, a literal dead dragon?
He saw the literal death of a dragon crushing this specific hedge knight.
Oh my God.
So when Daeron wakes up from his drunken blackout, steps out of the tavern, and sees a nearly 7-foot giant matching the exact description of the man from his vision.
The psychological horror sets in. He realizes the prophecy wasn't a metaphor, it is actively happening.
Right, so he frames Dunk not just to hide his own negligence, but because he genuinely believes Dunk is the epicenter of a massive cataclysm.
He thinks he's manipulating events to avoid the prophecy, but his lie is the exact mechanism that ensures the prophecy is going to come to pass.
It's a self-fulfilling nightmare, and this leaves us staring into a deeply unsettling abyss.
We know how House Targaryen operates. They respond to any slight with fire and blood.
Let alone the alleged kidnapping of royal blood. They're going to descend on the Ashford Meadow, bringing the full weight of the Iron Throne down on a penniless hedge knight and a 9-year-old runaway.
The stage is set for an absolute massacre. Dunk has no money, no lords to back him, and the entire royal family thinks he stole their prince.
The political machinery is moving to crush them. But the darker, more terrifying question isn't what the king will do.
It's what the universe will do.
Exactly. What happens to Dunk and Egg on the bloody fields of Ashford when a mad, drunken prince's dark prophecy actually manifests?
How does a colossal, dead dragon truly fall from the sky?
It leaves you with chills.
It really does. That is the inescapable grip of fate. We started this deep dive talking about the sanitized history, the gods draped in velvet and Valyrian steel.
But the truth is, the gods of Westeros don't wear velvet.
Sometimes they hide in the mud. Sometimes they wear rusted mail. And sometimes they fall right out of the sky to crush you. Think about the weight of that dead dragon the next time you picture a crown.